Hey, Michael, welcome to the show.
Hello, Sabby. How's it going?
Good, man. So excited to talk to you. I want to first start off with just your background. I've read about a lot about you, and I want to kind of know viewers to know, what were you doing before you joined BitClout?
Yeah, so I've had a long career in Silicon Valley, mainly with one company called Plug and Play. So I'm the chief revenue officer there. So I lead corporate partnerships. We are essentially the largest global innovation platform, which is a really broad and lofty term, but that's because we do a lot of stuff. The three main things that we run startup accelerator programs across 38 cities around the world. We work with about 500 corporate partners to really fuel their external innovation strategies, primarily by introducing them to startups that can help solve their business challenges. And then lastly, we ourselves invest in about 300 startups every year. So I'm also a managing partner for one of our funds, and I'm a partner for the family office. So we're deploying anywhere from 50 to 80 million a year into the startup community, ranging from pre-seed to Series B, depending on the investment. And so it's been a really fun,
That's
long
amazing.
ride. No, I said it's been a really long and fun ride. I've been there for almost 10 years now. And prior to that, I had a couple of startups, one of which raised like $8 million dollars and failed miserably. And then a second of which went through one of Plug and Play's programs. And I went through one of their accelerators with this startup, and it ended up selling to Google.
That's amazing, dude. Congratulations, first of all. Did you um, get into plug and play because of your startup, or were you already a part of it and then you kind of did a startup after?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had a very good connection at Plug and Play, which was the CEO's son. He is one of my best friends, and he was a groomsman in my wedding. So very close contact there. But it was interesting. I played baseball all through college, and I never really worked in the summers or had internships because I was playing baseball. And so I remember my junior year of college, I was like finally thinking, wow, I might not play pro baseball. This isn't looking so good, and I haven't had any work experience. So I went to my friend Cena and asked if I could intern for his dad, and he was like, "No, you're a shithead. You're my friend. Like you can't work for my dad." And I begged and begged, and I finally, ran into Saeed, the CEO, in like the parking lot at some event, and I begged him for an internship, and he finally let me. And I remember joining that summer. The first day on the job, he said, everyone in the office, and there was like, I don't know, 50 interns joining that day. Everyone in the office is fired unless they get a job with a startup in the building by the end of the day. And so our job for Plug and Play happened in the morning, and then we had to work with a startup in the afternoon. And so that's how I got introduced to that startup. And I ended up doing both work for Plug and Play as well as that startup during that summer.
Man, that's amazing how he set that up. It's like either yeah, that's some pressure there. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool, actually.
throwing you into the fire for sure. That's how I was introduced to
Yeah,
Silicon.
thinking about coming in, like first day at work, you're like, I'm so excited, my first internship, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, get another
Fire.
job in today or you're fired.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So from there, you got in the ecosystem and you learned more about the valley and like how it works, and obviously you guys have like you've seen so much what's happening in the valley. What made you got into BitCloud? Is it because of your kind of being in the valley, or how did that happen?
I think that was definitely a driver. So just ever since joining Plug and Play, I think it was in like 2011 when I first interned, and then I joined I think full time in 2012 2013. I was always interested in technology, emerging technology, and always had a really good outlet to be exposed to it. Just going to Plug and Play because we've got corporate partners looking for innovation, we've got startups who are innovating, and essentially we're playing matchmaker. And so you're always learning through osmosis because there's people who are so much smarter than you, sitting literally in the same building and in the meetings. And so you're just listening and just getting smarter and absorbing. And so I got exposed to the crypto space, the Bitcoin, I think shortly after joining Plug and Play through one of my colleagues, Scott Robinson, who actually founded the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup. And he was sitting next to me, and he wouldn't shut up about Bitcoin. He kept like talking about it and talking about it. And then he finally just made me a Coinbase wallet and sent me a little bit of Bitcoin back then. And I think the price of Bitcoin was, sub 100 at the time. And He
No way.
got me into it. I took a couple $1,000s and bought, I don't know, at the time, 20 something Bitcoins. And he said, just hold on, like thank me in 10 years, basically. And that's what really started me on it. And like right around that time, you saw Bitcoin price start to spike a little bit and go to 1,000. And you're like, well, this is amazing. And so really got into Bitcoin, and we started mining it at the Plug and Play headquarters in the data center. We started doing these meetups. We started investing in startups. We actually had a Bitcoin accelerator. So we were investing in startups that were building on the Bitcoin blockchain. And that evolved into our fintech program. And so that's really what got me excited and introduced to this space. And then Ethereum came along and got really interested in that. But I'd say I was, I think I had a background knowledge of this space very early on, and have been just tracking all the new technologies and the new things coming out of blockchain. And what really introduced me to Bitcoin, I mean, what really introduced me to BitClout was I was at dinner about 50 days ago with one of my good friends. Jake Zeller, and his firm actually invested in BitClout in like the early rounds prior to the Genesis block. And him and I'm an angel investor as well. We always share deal flow. And I was like, hey, you have any exciting projects? Like, what's going on? Like, do you have any good startups that I can invest in or co-invest with you? And he's like, no real startups, but I've got this really interesting project called BitClout. And he sent me the like private link where you needed like a password at the time to get on. And from the first day, I had been like, hooked. And it was funny because at that dinner, I was with 12 people or so. I introduced it to everyone at the dinner table. And by the end of the dinner, everyone had an account and no one was talking to each other or eating. They were just like buried in their phone on the shitty mobile app for BitClout, making their profile, posting. And so that's really how it started. And from there, it just kind of took off. And yeah, now we are where we are today.
That's so cool. I want to ask you more questions about BitClout because I feel like you have such a one like an investor perspective, right? Because you meet so many people in the valley in the investment space, and so obviously you know what's behind the scenes and how people are thinking. But before that, I kind of want to touch on or chat about your co-founder relationship and partnership because I was like I think there's a lot of people who are coming into big cloud space or even in general startups are always the same question, hey, how do I find a developer? I want to build this but I don't have anybody, right?
Yeah.
But I would love to kind of chat with you about how, because you have worked with your co-founder Charlie for quite a bit, right? And so how does that relationship came about? And yeah, if you could touch on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so when I started at Plug and Play, I had a really well. He started out as a colleague who became one of my best friends. His name was Robin, and he's from the UK. And he was always talking about this guy Charlie and how we should get him on board at Plug and Play because he's just this amazing marketer and designer. And at the time, Plug and Play, like we now have like 1,000 employees. Back then, we had like 15 employees, and so we didn't even have a marketing person or a design person, and we were all making our own decks when we were presenting and stuff, and it was pretty bootleg. And eventually, Charlie came out to visit, Charlie Hilton, and it was obvious that he had like the skills that we needed as a company that was, primed to take off. Just our model and everything was primed to take off. We just needed a couple puzzle pieces to make it so. And that's how it started. So he joined Plug and Play shortly after that. He moved from the UK and joined the company. And so we worked together for 7 or 8 years before he left and really built something amazing. Obviously, a lot of team members were involved, but he was kind of like my partner in crime. I was the CRO, head of sales, and he was the head of marketing and head of design. And so he would create amazing presentations. He would create amazing softwares internally, amazing proposals, and I would sell them. And that's just kind of what the partnership was. And so he would build it, and I would sell it. And that business for us at Plug and Play grew into a $100 million business before he left, and it's grown since then. But
Wow.
$100 million in top line revenue in a short period of time. A lot of it had to do, obviously, with our model and just our amazing team at a broader level. But I'd say a main driver was his ability to create and his ability to really make visuals of what we were trying to say and make it seem really pretty, like seem really simple, really appeasing to the eyes. And that's just kind of how we hit it off. And every morning he would come to my office and we'd brainstorm, and it was just like it was yin and yang. And so he was the first person I called to tell about BitClout. So right after I had told the people at dinner, he was the first person like I actually called and said, "Hey, you got to get on board." And he was pretty amazed with it, and he found a niche obviously because he's so good at design, and he started just mocking up all of these like really interesting features or potential use cases for
Yeah.
Bitcoin that could be built. And I think the community, the early community, really responded well to that. And I had gone a little different route. I was doing a lot of commentary on BitClout and like kind of bringing in the words to accompany his designs in many ways. And so I would do what he would do, just kind of like I would type out like what I was thinking versus like designing it, just because I don't have those skills. And and then I started like finding out that I was decent at memeing, and like I had never made memes. I had never,
Yeah.
really engaged in any other social media, to be honest, in any like significant way. And so that kind of became my lane, because like in BitCloud, it's like you can really exhaust a certain thing and then like you kind of figure out what's next. And so I started doing memes, and Charlie eventually kind of poking fun at me in a way, came out with this meme for Cloutopoly, which because I kept coming out with things like the Clout Father and like like coming like instead of Scarface, making a meme, call it Clout Face, and like all of these things. So he like just made fun of me, said, "Hey, what about Cloutopoly?" And he tagged me, and before I know it, we've got like 50 DMs. He's getting messages, and everyone's asking us when we're going to build this thing. And so it was so funny the way it happened, because we were making a meme of a meme essentially about a very physical traditional business, which is a board game built on a blockchain, right? So everyone else is like clamoring to build these amazing applications built on a blockchain. We're building a board game, like a physical board game, right? And the community just responded so well
Yeah.
to it because we modeled it after the kind of vernacular and the community and the users on BitClout. So instead of properties, we have usernames. Instead of the go to jail card, we've got go to clubhouse card. You know what I mean? So like it's so funny the way that it evolved. And within like the first day of launching, we had pre-sold I think $52,000 worth of board games, and now it's
Wow.
surpassed that. And this
Wow.
isn't $52,000 invested in our coin. This is $52,000 worth of
No, no,
BitClout
it's like real
pumped to
money.
our account. Yeah, I mean real money to the extent we can
Yeah.
liquidate it. And then on top of that, I
Yeah.
think over $300,000 in market cap just for the Cloutopoly game coin, not to mention all the different marketing
Wow.
accounts that we've created to go alongside it. So it happened really quick, and it all happened because we memed about it.
That's so amazing. Actually, by the way, I want to take a quick um, like detour here and mention to viewers kind of this part where you're like prime, like like what Paul Graham talks about, where like it's like a couple of friends, have doing amazing for themselves, but on their downtime, just making cool shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool way to think about it. If like a lot of people who are getting into big cloud, like who are like, oh, how do I start this business? Like find a friend you love or you generally excited to work with or spend time with, and just like have fun with it. Don't think too much about it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's funny, like we're on the phone, or I'm at least calling him, 10, 15 times a day. He doesn't answer all the time. He's more of he likes to text, and I'm more of a like FaceTime. And so
Yeah,
like depending on what mood he's in, he might not answer all my calls. But yeah, it's so fun and easy to do things with people that you have, that it's fun and easy to do things with. And that's basically how our relationship has been. And we've built technology together that hasn't hit the market yet, which if we wanted to could pivot and make a startup out of it. And it's just fun. It's really fun. And we know our lane and we know our
yeah,
role, and we're accountable to each other. Right. So like I know he's gonna design it,
yeah,
and I know I gotta sell it and run the operations of it. And as long as we, play our role, it's a beautiful combination.
yeah. And also, I can see it's from me. I don't know you that well, but I'm just looking. First 15 minutes talking to you, I can already see the energy and the contagiousness. Like I want to support you because it's just so exciting. Like it's not about like, hey, I want to go and build a startup just for you, whatever. It's like let's just have fun with it, and I can already
Yeah.
feel that. And
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
is a big one as well.
Yeah, and I think I've been blessed just in my career to have a job that I love. And like, there's that corny saying, like, it's not a job if like you love it, like you don't work a day in your life if you love what you're doing, kind of thing. But it's true, and I've been able to like have that translate to other projects and like passions. And passion is one thing that I think is tough to teach, but as long as you're doing something you love, it's easy to be passionate. And that's kind of what I found just working through Plug and Play, and working in this space is there's so many possibilities, and we're so early that you do have the ability to make a really large impact, because not many people are taking kind of the risk to like jump into it, and people don't understand it, and people are just like unsure, and they don't want to lose money, and they don't want to like quit their jobs, or they don't want to like try something new because they're comfortable. And this is like the best time, I think, in history to be alive, but it's also the best time in history to create something because there's so many tools and resources at your disposal to make cool stuff. And when you have someone like a partner, a Charlie, to do it with, it makes it that much easier, that much more fun.
Love that, man. Um, I would kind of want to get into like actually knowing your thoughts on BitClout. Like, so what? How do you? Where do you see where we're at right now? How do you see it? Where do you see it going? What's the talk of the town when you talk to other smart friends or investors, and how does that look to you right now?
Yeah, I think it's a really cool start to the platform, right? So we've got users, we've got a cool new first use case, which is this like Twitter/Facebook-esque social media platform. I think the incentive is really cool, where people now have money on the line and things of that nature. I think it's going to start getting really interesting when people start leveraging the really heavy duty blockchain that they've built and start building other applications on top of it. What I'm most excited for, and a lot of like the investors and whales, and other sharks that I interact with, and I'm like a part of a bunch of different guilds and Telegram groups and Discord and stuff. So we're always talking. For me, right now, it seems a little bit like a zero sum game with the investing in creator coins, because there's not a lot of new liquidity coming into the market. So it's more like you're investing in a coin and then you're taking money out from people that you might know or not know. It's
Yeah,
not like there's huge potential there unless you get in really early into a creator coin that blows up. And then it's like, wait, am I not supposed to take my money out because I don't want to be a rug puller? It's like, how are you supposed to make money on
yeah,
this thing, right? And so then people are starting to make anonymous
yeah.
accounts and transfer within accounts and pull that way. And so I think like people are starting to feel the fatigue on that side. What I'm really interested in is when people start creating businesses on top of it that are subscription, right? So when you start having recurring revenue, and you're able to invest in those projects, knowing that they're going to have X amount of users paying X amount of BitClout or whatever currency they're transacting in the platform, on a recurring basis, that's going to be really interesting, because those are the companies and those are the projects that people want to invest in. Right now, it's more about, oh, I want to invest in
Mhm.
accounts, that I know they're reinvesting in their coin, right? That's great. But then if you're going to pull out as the creator, they're just pulling out and taking your money that you're reinvesting. But if it's money that's generated from the business itself, then it's more taking out money that's contributed by the whole community. And the only way that's going to actually work is if the app or the technology that's created is super sticky. Like, I use a tool called BitClout Express right now for when I'm trading. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they like alert you on all sells, all buys, all transfers, anytime a creator buys their own coin. And so you can kind of see like signals on who you should invest in. That's such a sticky tool to me that if they charge me monthly for it or even weekly, I would still keep the tool because it's such a good tool. So obviously, it's easy to say I want to invest in
Makes sense.
subscription businesses, but the tool itself or the application has to be sticky enough for people to want to pay a subscription for it. But that's what I'm really excited for. So I think like that's going to be the future, is people building these sustainable businesses on top of it. I think creators are going to like, there are always going to be creators. I think the ones that win, as individuals and not as projects or businesses, are going to be ones that are able to give tremendous value to their shareholders, either in forms of exclusive access to services that they provide, exclusive access to different experiences they can provide, and not just, hey, I'm doing a board meeting for my top 10 coin holders. Like, I don't want to join any more board meetings, to be honest. Like, I already joined a ton of board meetings.
Yep.
Give
Yep.
me like backstage passes to your concert or something, or give me like awesome NFT art. Like, that's what I'm looking for, something like that. But I think it's a really cool start to the platform. It's still so early. But what I'm seeing is, like I said, there's definitely a slowdown in terms of the money that can be made on creator coins. And I'm seeing that personally, because in the beginning it was like hockey stick up and to the right, exactly what you want to see. Now it's definitely starting to taper off because the
Yep.
amount of users joining are kind of slowing down, and the amount of money coming in is slowing down. I think once it hits the exchanges, that'll change. There's going to be a lot more liquidity, and I think that'll, it'll, I guess, calm people's nerves about joining the platform who were previously scared about putting money in, not knowing they can take it out. So I think that'll be a huge driver for growth. But like I said, it's so early, and if you look at this compared to any other startup, they're so far ahead because I mean, if you look at it just from the amount of
Yeah.
Bitcoin that has gone into the platform, like over $200 million in Bitcoin, right? You can value this company at over $1 billion just off that. And so they're super far ahead of most startups at this point in the game.
One thing that I find very fascinating is, I mean, first of all, the developers, like, right, like yesterday they came out with the TikTok challenge. Like, they are doing things that, like, that are taking things out, like getting more people involved. So they're like, that's obviously the diamond feature. Like, the features, they are so fast at like pushing features out. And I've been a developer, or as in, like, worked in startups, so I think they've already. I think this is all pre-planned. I don't think they're coding it that fast. I just don't. Doesn't make sense to me. I think they're already ready, but it's a part of some kind of a marketing strategy with slowly rolling it out and building that hype.
You're talking about
Um,
the core BitClout team?
the core BitClout team,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
That doesn't seem like you're just coding in 2 days and you like
Yeah,
build a
yeah,
feature. It doesn't, right?
yeah.
That's one part of it. The other part I'm seeing, which is very interesting, is a lot of these creators. Like, I saw, like, when you look at the verified creators, are coming on the platform and their coin value skyrockets, and they get bored and they leave. I am just kind of this question. I'm trying to think from a creator perspective, right? As someone who's an influencer, let's say. So let's say I'm an influencer. My first what do you call, like, problem would be when I come on the platform. Well, first would be, I don't want to, my followers don't have a Bitcoin account. There's so much friction. If there was a easy way to put fiat in and get BitClout, that'd probably be easier. That's one. Number two would be what you said, the scam part, right? Where there's no enough liquidity right now, so we don't know if this might fall and my followers might lose money, whatever. But the biggest one that I see right now is assuming these are all fixed, which I think it will be fixed in due time. It's like, if they come on and they're like, well, why should I take money in BitClout, subscription based model, like, kind of say, let's say that, because let's say if I go and use Patreon, like, I know that money is coming in my pocket, right? Like, let's say if I have 1,000 people paying $20 a month, that's 20 grand a month, and if it's in my coin, what if these people just go and like take the money out, right? So I'm not really getting cash in my pocket. So how do you think that evolves? What do you think that, because we're saying, hey, come to BitClout. Well, sure, you can do a lot of things. You can build a better relationship, but you don't lose the 20% that Patreon will take. But what if the people sell? Then they're not really getting cash in hand.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to the point that I was talking about earlier. It's tough, and like I think first of all, I think like just going like kind of back a little bit on your first point is like the drop in engagement from these influencers. I mean, I think a lot of influencers joining the platform are seeing it as like this potential way to get like rich off what they've been doing on other platforms, and they're expecting
Yeah,
their the thirst traps that they post on Instagram to translate. I think we have to realize is the early users of BitClout are not going to BitClout to see, the type of content that you would typically go to see on Instagram, right? Well, that's not what we want to see. I'll
yeah.
go to Instagram for that if I want that. They're expecting the content they put out on these other platforms to perform on BitCloud. That's just not the case. So I think that's like a huge issue, and I think you're going to see more and more influencers that have joined early just drop off just because of that reason. And I'm talking more like the B-list celebrities, the Instagram influencers, people like that. I think there's going to be another issue with these tier one artists, like the big time artists. And I'm only speaking out of kind of the fact I'm speaking from the fact that like I've talked to some of these guys, and they kind of like, let's say like a big musician, right? They explained that they're treated like a commodity in almost every aspect of the way that they do business already, right? If you're a big musician, you have to deal with the label, and you have to deal with the agent, and you have to deal with like the places that the venues put on concerts, and everyone's taking a piece of you, right? So why would you join BitCloud, and now like you're treated as a commodity to your fans also, right? Where they can buy and sell you, and that could like potentially impact your personality. I mean, your clout in real life. And so I think there's like a lot of like different things at play just in terms of why people would come on, and then how do you keep them happy, and how do you keep them engaging like the right way. Um, but you're and then it goes back now it's like, how do you kind of like compensate these people, right? I think it's like a good question, and I think it's got to come down to this idea of like recurring revenue and then like liquidation. Like, how are you able to liquidate your money? And I think we have to turn to the developer community to come up with unique solutions, unique ways for artists to feel
Yeah.
comfortable coming on. We can't just like
Yeah.
expect it to happen overnight. I think it's going to be kind of like stage gated, but eventually it's going to happen. People are so creative. And like you said, things are coming out so fast. I'm sure they've already thought about this, right? Like the people behind
Yeah.
this, we're
I
not,
agree.
yeah, we know who, we're not supposed to know who they are, but we know who they are. These are very smart people who have the best venture capitalists in the world supporting them since the beginning. You have Sequoia, you have
Yeah.
Andreessen,
Yeah.
you've got Coinbase Ventures, right? You've got Lightspeed, like you've got literally the tier ones of the tier ones. They only invest in sure things for the
Yeah.
most part. You know what I mean? Like, they're not investing in people who haven't thought this out. And then for those of you who weren't able to like listen to Diamond Hands like talk, like he's thought about so much of this already. And I think it's just a matter of time. And I think we just need to get through this like first 6 months, first year period, and make sure like we at least have a good strong core of people who stay engaged, and there's like, a few big time people that come on the platform and are able to leverage it. Um, because once that happens, then the masses will come. I think we're already ahead of Twitter when they launched, you know what I mean, in terms of like users and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think we're at a very good point. It's just going to take some time.
I love that. Sorry, what was the diamond hand stock you're talking about?
So he had like a big talk, private talk to a lot of like the early investors in the Genesis block. I wasn't on it, but we had some. I'm in like a guild with some others that were invited to listen, and he basically went in and explained everything, the roadmap, how they're going to release things, talked about things from a legal perspective and what that looks like from a regulatory perspective, from a tax perspective on creator coins, and so the comments that I got from the people that I know were able to listen, it was very reassuring.
Wow, that's great. Um, awesome. So now you're also, I think you started a new fund, or which is like a BitClout Venture Group, where you're investing in creators on BitClout.
Yeah, so right now, I basically was able to invest and do pretty well on my own through a number of different accounts, and um, had been talking to some friends who have friends who are LPs and other funds of ours, and are looking for exposure to the broader kind of blockchain ecosystem, and we kind of brought this up as an idea, and they were very quick to say, "Hey, or take our money." And so right now we're in the process of forming a legal entity called the BitClout Venture Group,
Amazing.
and the idea is to invest in creators, projects, blue chips, and also our own coin. We have a revenue kind of strategy to produce amazing returns. We're not doing it. We're doing it more in a traditional venture capital structure. So if you look at like the Creator Fund and some of these others that are starting, where they're raising on the platform from users, we're actually raising money from
Yeah,
LPs. So we're going out and getting
love
like
that.
checks, and like it's legit. Like we're going to a legal firm, and establishing an entity, and raising money the traditional way, and investing the money in a more traditional way as well. And we're hoping that comes together shortly. There are some issues though, like even just talking to like attorneys and legal people about setting up a fund targeted and really formed to invest in creators and the ecosystem within BitClout. It's so new to them that like a lot of them have never even heard of BitClout, and so it's like such a new concept. And so they're like, "What do you mean you can't take the money out? There's no liquidity yet." Like, well, actually, you can take the money out. It's just at a 20 to 30% discount on over the counter, and they're like, whoa, I don't know how we would structure this. And so things are a little bit delayed from where we want, because we really want it to be buttoned up. We don't want it to be an issue with some of the other funds that we've seen out there and kind of the reputations
Yep.
they've gotten. And so we want to make sure we do everything right, or we don't do it at all. But I've got a very good set of LPs and a very good partner base who have asked to remain anonymous for the time being, just because they have other jobs. But yeah, once that gets going, you'll be the first to know, and we're super excited about the potential for it. But yeah, we want to make sure that everything is set on the legal side before we actually go through with it.
That's totally fair. But out of curiosity, I'm sure you've thought while this is happening, you've thought about, what kind of first few creators or companies, or not even specific people, but like concepts that really intrigues you. Like I'm guessing anything subscription based model will be one thing that will really intrigue you. But what else? Like, have you been thinking? Like, what do you want to invest in?
Yeah, I mean, I love like why I love what Charlie did for the community is he really got people to think about the use cases, and then also just hearing through the community about how heavy duty this blockchain really is, the possibilities
Yeah.
for things that could be built on top of it. So you could see like full on marketplaces being built on top of it, and like I. For plug and play, I manage our future commerce fund, so I'm really interested in the way people do commerce and transact. And so you can imagine like a Shopify being built on top of BitClout, right? And like a whole marketplace where people transact all in BitClout or in creator coins for physical goods, for digital goods. So like, what if there was like an eBay built on top of it, or what if there was a Shopify or an Amazon? Like all of these things are possible. And I think it's like I'm kind of drawing an analog to like Facebook in the early days, like when companies that became billion-dollar companies were launched on Facebook, like the applications that like I remember Lending Club launched on Facebook. There were a lot of big gaming companies that were launched on Facebook. We could see the same thing happen here, where separate individual billion-dollar companies are built on BitClout. But in order for that to happen, you need scale and you need users. So I think we really need to focus on getting that user base up and driving engagement via the core functionality of the first use case. And I think all of that will come. I think the
Hmm.
ideas are endless, but in order for those things to become as big as we all want them to be, obviously you need users. And so I think that's got to be a big focus for the founding team at BitClout. And so they're probably doing everything they can to roll out these features to bring in that user base.
Yeah, I just saw before the interview, like 5 minutes before the interview. So I don't know if you got a chance to check it out or not. But so maybe made a post today. Like it's like the what do you call featured post today, and it's basically doing a contest where they're trying to get artists to go back, people on BitCloud to go make the best TikTok, and the idea again being so that you go share it in the TikTok world and then bring users from there back to BitCloud.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, it's like for a growth. It's like growth hacking.
It's a growth hacking. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, you look at TikTok and the user base that they have. I mean, it's obvious that. I mean, I don't know if you. So I think it was Logan Paul. No, it was Jake Paul or Logan Paul. He was doing an interview, I think, with Craig, and he said that his
I think it was
follower
Logan Paul with.
with Craig.
Sorry, go ahead.
He was doing an interview with Craig. Craig did like an interview with Logan Paul and all his top coin holders, and Logan Paul said his followers won't join BitClout for another 2 or 3 years, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Wow.
And it's because probably the medium they're used to sharing and creating is TikTok, and it's like a video format. So I think a good way to hopefully accelerate those young Gen Z kind of potential users is to figure out a way to mix the worlds, right? So bring TikTok into BitClout, bring BitClout to TikTok via what May Beam just posted. So I think it's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's just like interesting to think about how every other day is like you'd find out something new and you're like, huh, never thought about this. This is cool. Like how, like, how they're, it's very planned. I think it's very smart.
Yeah, you're right. I think they probably have like a huge graph, and it's like, okay, we're day 54, we're rolling out the TikTok challenge. Day 55, we're rolling out the Snapchat challenge. Like it's gonna, they've got a plan. I mean, and if you think about it, they've raised a ton of money, not in the traditional sense, but
Yeah.
if you look at the way they did it with the token sale, like they've got a lot of money, and even if they were to liquidate that on
Yep.
OTC, they've got a lot of money to work with, and they've got a lot of really smart people who have done a lot of good, amazing things in this space previously too.
For folks, I just want to point this out because Michael has done startups and he's been in startup world. I've done startups. It's having a game plan like this and rolling stuff out like this is actually very. It's not as easy as it sounds. So there's a lot of thought that has gone through it. Like it's so that's why we're like, wow, this is pretty fascinating. How they're approaching this. Uh, Michael, I want to be mindful of your time. I know you have to head out in 5 minutes, so I'm going to ask you one last question, and that is about just NFTs and art on BitCloud. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's another really cool element of BitClout is there's such an eclectic group of creators, right? You've got musicians, you've got you've got people that are entrepreneurs creating businesses, you've got artists. I've always been a fan of NFTs and the idea that you can like own things in the digital world. Like, I love the idea of like the metaverse as an example. Like, as you know, like real estate, you can't create more of it. And if you take that to like the digital world, you can think about making real estate investments like in beachside property in the metaverse. And I've always thought that like concept is so cool. And like I really love the idea of like Top Shot and all these like really interesting platforms where you can buy moments. I think this is the perfect platform to debut people's skills, to be honest. And I think the recent news about these big pieces of work by Beeple selling for a lot of money, I think is really validating that this has a long term future. And I think NFTs and social
Yep.
tokens go hand in hand, right? And you're starting to see that. What I love about the idea of NFTs and social tokens is they can serve multiple purposes, right? So it can be a beautiful piece of art, it can be an investment that you can speculate on, and it could be, a ticket to a concert, right? Like it can serve all these different purposes. So, you can imagine like the chain smokers coming out with an NFT of their new album artwork. So it's a beautiful picture, but it's
Yep.
also now a ticket to the backstage to get a backstage pass. And you can resell that and speculate on it. Like, so it's like an asset that has multiple uses, just like Bitcoin, right? So it's so cool. And I think the future is super bright. And I think what you're starting to see is like the next generation, they don't want to be bankers, right? They want to be creators, and they want to be people that
Yep.
contribute in that way. And I think this is just a new outlet for them to do it. And also, the next generation, most of them would prefer to hang out in like the metaverse, right? They'd prefer to like watch their friends play video games from the comfort of their own home without actually having to be with them, so they can like actually take advantage of these new these kind of new phenomena in the digital world and actually be creative. And now there's platforms to get it out there. But I think it's so cool, and I'm still a student. I'm still learning about them. I just changed my profile pic to an NFT for BitClout, which is new for me. But I think the future is bright, and I think BitClout's going to be a great way for people to debut their work and also to push that forward.
Love that, man. So where do we see Michael and Cloutopoly in the next couple of months? Even let's
So
assume that for
Cloutopoly,
now.
we are currently in the middle of a marketing campaign where we are giving away 4 spots on the board via uh, 4 accounts that we've created: Black Benz, Red Ferrari, Green Lambo, and Blue Bentley. Every zero point 0.1 coins that you buy of them count as a raffle ticket. And then every Friday, starting this Friday, we announce the winner, and the winner will have their place in Cloutopoly and BitClout history by having their name on the board. So instead of the trains or the railroads, we have these exotic cars. And so we'll do that campaign for the next month until the last one is given away.
Love that.
We've lined up our producer already. The game is sick. Like it's not a normal Monopoly board, like just like normal colors. It's holographic. It's got like crazy just graphics. It's got an amazing board. All characters within the BitClout community are on there. We've actually been able to sell spots on the board for 10 BitClout, which is pretty amazing too. So a lot of the
Wow.
OGs, yeah. So like people are, the equivalent of USD like $1,700 just to be on the board. The game pieces are super cool. Like we've got a green Lambo as a game piece. We've got a whale. We've got a shark. We've got the reclout symbol as a playing piece. Um, I think it'll probably take 3 to 6 months to create the game. That's just typical. That's just typical runtime for any board game. But we found a really cool producer in LA that's going to put it out for us. And between now and then, it's just trying to sell as many as possible and get them in the hands of our customers. And we'll do a whole campaign afterwards for people to take pictures and then post them on BitClout. And we'll give away cool stuff and have like different kind of gimmicks to go along with that. But yeah, it's been a ton of fun, and I can't wait to see people playing the game.
We're so excited, Michael. Thank you so much for being on the show. It looks amazing looking at the graphics, and can wait to see it once it's out. And thank you again. This was beautiful.